This episode goes out to our patron, Kai Kochanov. You're the best. Hi there, Garrett Robinson here. Welcome to the third episode of the Nightblade Epic Podcast, Season 4. Hey listener, today I wanted to remind you about the Underrealm full hardcover collection, which now includes Tales of the Wanderer Volume 1. That brings the collection to 12 full novels and 11 short stories set in the world of Underrealm. It's over 1 million words for a huge discount over buying the individual books, and it's the best way to dive into this fantasy world. To order your collection today, go to underrealm.net/books. That's underrealm.net/books. Also, if you can, please support this show on Patreon. This show is possible because of the incredible support we receive from our community, and nowhere is that more true than our Patreon supporters. To support the show for just $1 a month, or more than $1 a month, go to underrealm.net/Patreon. That's underrealm.net/Patreon. Okay, now it's time for today's episode. Today, you're getting Chapter 4 of Shadeborn, the fourth book in the Nightblade epic. When we left off, Lauren had finally set out to have a long overdue conversation with the wizard Zane. Enjoy! Shadeborn, Chapter 4. Zane stood across the narrow street. A lamp on the building beside him bathed him in its sickly yellow glow. His nails scratched furiously at his sleeve, and his head darted back and forth in the darkness. When he saw her emerge, she thought she saw him sigh with relief, but she approached him slowly. If he was going to be so difficult, she was in no hurry to give him what he desired. I may have spoken harshly," he muttered once Lauren was in earshot. "Forgive me." "Mayhap," said Lauren easily. "Still, you have me here now, wizard. What shall we speak of? You make it sound most urgent, though you yourself have had days to speak to me. A conversation takes not one, but two at least." "What we have to say, what I have to tell you at least, I would not utter in anything above a whisper, and not at all here in the city," said Zane. Suddenly his voice was no longer bitter or even exasperated. Instead he sounded afraid, and his words carried a darkness that made Lauren shiver. She tried to disguise it as a sudden chill in the night air and drew her cloak closer about herself. "What, then? Do you mean to fly us into the air with your magic? For we are within the city still." "At my best I could not do so, and I am far from my best. If it pleases you, Nightblade, let us take a stroll beyond the walls of Northwood." Lauren did not relish the idea of walking unknowing into the darkness with him, but his calling her Nightblade mollified her somewhat. It was a foolish daydream of her childhood, and only a few knew of it, though Jem kept trying to spread the tale of her, an effort she found more irritating than endearing, but she rarely had the heart to tell him to stop. Zane pushed off from the wall and strode down the street, and Lauren felt she had little choice but to follow. Rather than north, as she often went with Chet, Zane now took her east. There the gate lay open still, despite the late hour. Northwood had been removed from the wars of the Nine Lands for so long that it felt no need to lock its doors against them. The guard at the gate gave them a close look, peering at them in the weak light of his torch, but let them pass without question or comment. Soon they were in the empty darkness of the farmlands beyond the city, with only the tiny glow of candlelight through the windows of farmhouses to break the inky black. From behind him, Lauren saw the faint glow of Zane's eyes and heard him muttering words of power. A small spark of flame sprang to life in his hand, but almost immediately it guttered and died. Zane muttered a curse and tried again. This time the fire remained, hovering above his palm, though it was thin and wispy compared to the flames she had seen him cast in times gone. "Your gift has not entirely left you, I see," she said. "It weakens by the day," said Zane. "Soon even this small mage light will require all of my power and concentration. Then it will be a long time before my powers return to me." "How long?" "I do not know. I have never witnessed the recovery of one plagued by magestone sickness. They are, as you may know, strictly outlawed by the High King." He barked a harsh laugh, and Lauren found herself joining him. But she also thought, with some trepidation, of the small packet of magestones she carried in her pocket even now. Zane knew nothing of them. She had made very certain of that. She did not like to imagine what he would do if he ever found out. Soon even the lights of the farmhouses had vanished behind them, and Zane's was the only flame in sight. But the moons had risen already, and they gave Lauren enough light to keep from stumbling, most of the time. Finally Zane stopped and turned to her. Without a word, he sat cross-legged upon the ground beside the road. With a furtive toss of his hand, he indicated for her to do the same. "A moment," said Lauren. She stepped off into the darkness, searching around in the grass. Though it was still green, it was dry, and from the hedge that ran beside the road she pulled a few dead branches. These she made into a little pile before Zane, and waved her hand at it. "Light this. It will save your strength, for if we must finally speak of dark matters, I would have all your concentration." "My concentration? I find it difficult to think of anything else," said Zane. But he lit the tinder, and soon the branches caught above it. In no time they had a little fire going, and Zane let the flame die in his hands. "First, I should tell you what Jordell said just before he died," said Lauren, "though I know little of its meaning. He said the Shade's dark master had returned, and that Triskin was some captain of special significance. He said, as you and I saw, that magic is no proof against them." The Shades were a secret order that Lauren had only learned of weeks ago, when she and her friends had become lost in the Great Rocks and stumbled upon their stronghold there. Jordell had said precious little about them, only that they were an order somewhat like the Mystics, except the Mystics, who wore red cloaks, preserved order and upheld the king's law in the 9 lands. Lauren had never learned the Shade's true purpose, though she had an uncomfortable feeling that would soon change. "All of this I had guessed already," said Zane, waving a hand in dismissal. "Any fool could have pieced it together." "Then it was no great crime for me to wait so long to speak to you," said Lauren, her irritation growing. "Tell me, then, what you know, and why it is of such great importance that we must meet out here where only the grubs in the dirt can hear us. Who is this dark master of the Shades?" Zane looked at her a long moment. His eyes looked black in the darkness, black as they were when he cast his spells under the power of magestones. It made Lauren shiver, though she refused to look away. Then Zane averted his gaze and picked at his sleeve again, and when he spoke, it was not with an answer. "What do you know of magic?" Lauren blinked. "Only a little. I heard tales as a child, and Jordell taught me some little more when we were searching for you. I know of its 4 arms, which you call— I cannot remember their scholarly names just now, but they are fire magic, mind magic, were magic, and alchemy. Elementalism, mentalism, therianthropy, and transmutation," said Zane stiffly. Lauren ground her teeth, but he went on quickly as though sensing her impatience. "Yes, every child in the 9 lands knows this. Wizards are few and far between, but rare is the man, woman, or child who goes a lifetime without seeing at least one. Yet we are all of us ignorant. For there are two other branches, hidden, never taught to children. For in them lies the fate of us all, and a dark and terrible fate it is." Lauren felt as if the world around them had gone still. She had to struggle to hear even the crickets, for it seemed that everything had gone completely silent. "What?" Her voice cracked and she stopped. She swallowed hard and tried again. "What are the hidden branches?" "Ceremancy and necromancy," said Zane. "Life and death." Lauren frowned. "Those are not magic. They are... well, they simply are." "So I, too, thought," said Zane. "Yet in Wellmont I spoke with Jordell for nearly a day, and he taught me the truth of things. Life magic and death magic are the source of all the other branches. They are the essence of power itself. My power, the power of all wizards, the power of mage stones. All are interlinked, forever entwined with the two hidden branches." "But there are no life wizards and death wizards," Lauren said, irritated. "Surely we would have known of them if there were. You were the first wizard I had met, Zane, but I had heard tales aplenty before then. 4 branches I was told of, not 6, and nothing of 2 hidden branches." "That was by careful design," said Zane. "And you are wrong. There are life wizards and death wizards, or rather there is one of each. The necromancer, master of death, and the ceremancer, though that one is more often called the life mage." "Only one?" said Lauren, more confused than ever. "Why, when there are a great many of the other kinds of wizards?" "Because they are the source," said Zane. "They were the first, and from them sprang all the other lesser powers. And though the first necromancer and the first life mage died long, long ago, they were reborn. Again and again they returned, in later times and places, in new bodies, but always together, and always with the same powers, life and death, returning to wage their great and endless war for the fate of all men." "I have heard tales of great warriors, wizards, and kings," said Lauren, "and thieves as well. Yet never have I heard of either a life mage or a necromancer." "Many centuries has it been since they last lived in the 9 lands," said Zane softly. "And in such times, the in-between times, the mystics hide all knowledge of them. Every record is expunged, every tale snuffed out. They wish for no one to know of the necromancer, for then followers might take root and gather in strength in preparation of his coming." Lauren felt she understood at last. "The shades, they serve the necromancer. Do the mystics then serve the life mage? That is their true purpose, but they have forgotten, all but the highest and greatest among them, who guard the secret as carefully as the existence of the necromancer. To know of one is to know of the other." They fell to silence, and for a while the only sound was a light wind rustling the grass about them. Zane shivered and pulled his dirty gray cloak tighter. The weather struck him harder, as thin as he was. As she began to digest his words, a thought came to Lauren that made her heart skip a beat. "Then if the shades are gathering in strength, does that mean the necromancer is reborn?" "That is what Jordell guessed," said Zane. He picked at the cuff of his sleeve. "And while they grow in power, the mystics do nothing to stop them," said Lauren, stomach sinking. "Because they know nothing. Only Jordell discovered the truth, and he died in the Great Rocks. And now I have made us sit here and wait in a faraway city, when we should have been warning all the kingdoms." Zane looked away. "You can hardly be blamed," he said, though his voice was gruff. "We all keenly felt his loss." "I should not have let that stop me. Jordell would not have." She brushed the fingers of one hand across the battered knuckles of the other. Almost she struck at the ground again, but she did not wish to open the wound. "I'm sorry, Zane. I should have listened to you from the start." Zane grunted and moved to rise. "I will not argue there. Only see that you remember this in the days to come." Lauren shot to her feet easily and lowered a hand to pull him up. "I will. Clearly you are too weak to do much of anything useful, and have chosen to be wise instead to make up for it." He glared sharply up at her, but then the moon's light showed him her smile. A wry twist came to his lips, and he took her hand to rise. Together they strode back for Northwood, and Zane flicked a finger to douse the embers of the fire behind them. This has been a production of Legacy Books, written and narrated by Garrett Robinson. The music in this podcast was created by Will Musser. Check out his incredible work at willmusser.com. That's WILLMUSSER.com. Today's letter is E. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.